to a teacher, you go to an officer.
Right.
They can't do that anymore. They do not feel safe. They do not feel safe talking to their friends because their friends' daddies are who they are. They don't want to come forward, and they need to know. They don't see this. We may be telling our own kids about it, but the victims likely don't have advocates all in this room. Nobody's parents know exactly what's going on. And we need to publicly advocate for everyone and give them a safe space. And if that means bringing in outside mental health resources, we have to consider doing that. And you have to approve funding for that.
Yes.
Not every 10-year-old little girl and 16-year-old young lady that cheers, or a 17-year-old boy that's a good-looking football player, not all of them have a parent or a grandmother like myself who says, I'm up in your business, I know all your business, I've looked at your phone, we're going over here, we're causing a stir, we're making a mistake, we're getting our own attorney, and we're going to handle it. Not everybody has one of me. I would love to just help all these kids. My heart is breaking. So what she's saying is absolutely, there are victims out there, and even if they haven't come forward, the school needs to be letting the children right now know. Crisis, trauma response, you need to have people from pathways. They need to be talking to the elementary school kids. They need to be talking to the middle school and the high school. And it should have already happened.
I have a question for the board. Can we clarify what the scope of the investigation is? Is it purely for illegal activity? Is it for unethical activity? Or can it also include dereliction of duties?
We answered that a couple times. It's for everything.
Yeah.
Unethical, what we said, the things that are wrong with a teacher, wrong with all of it.
So is everybody looking for unethical things and dereliction of duties?
Yes.
So if somebody had a...
We can't really go into the investigation part, like we said, but I'm sure it will be thorough and we're going to make sure that it is.
That never needs to be posted. Frank Center for every veteran, for the woman investigator, because I have children coming home saying they're not allowed to talk about the situation going on in school.
Yep.
Not throw you on the spot, I'm glad to hear what you're calling, but your name was thrown out, but you don't want them talking about.
But you're pulling them in the office.
But I understand how rumor mills spread. I completely understand that, but tell a kid that it's happened to, they hear, like, hey, don't talk. You need to talk. Regardless, you can sway through the bullshit and find the truth, or the language. But the truth's there. You gotta get it out. And the kids need to have that number.
They do.
All
They do. They need it. They do.
One question I have, you guys have already confirmed, we already had the docket. Like, why wasn't Mr. Byrd put on a paid leave while that investigation was pending? Because those are the rules that Larry is supposed to follow. So he's in direct violation of those rules, and I'll gladly cite those to you when I get back home and review. Why wasn't anything done there? Why weren't the parents notified?
No, we've answered a lot. We can't comment personally.
They won't be able to comment on personnel on this part.
I understand that, but that as the people that appoint him, you should have noticed that is not cool. The conflict of interest at the court that it went to is not cool. Are you guys this inept at your job, or do you just not care?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks. Passion, everybody. Action.
There's a difference in passion and just
I'd love to share my correspondence with one of the board members, since you guys think I'm personally outing him. You keep staring. I don't know what you need, Logan. Like,
you personally attack
I didn't attack you. How so? How so? I've got messages. I'll show you. I reached out to him. I'll post them tonight. I've tried to protect him.
I don't understand why.
Thank you.
All right, I have a question.
We didn't hear any of it.
You go to the podium. We've been saying.
Okay, so my name is Mary Sue Nesling. I'm a reporter with the Daily Independent. I'm not supposed to
everything at the podium.
School, everybody knows everybody. That's why these secrets are coming out.
Listen.
Okay, so as I was saying, I'm a reporter with the Daily Independent. I'm never supposed to take the podium at a public meeting, but we're all doing a little bit that we're probably not supposed to do tonight.
You're correct.
I plan to speak with you all individually after the meeting, but I'm close to overtime, so I'm gonna interrupt and ask them now. So my one question to you all is, does Cold Iron, walking out of this meeting today, does that hold any weight to you in the future if the independent investigation were to come back, whether they have found things that were unethical, illegal, whatever it may be? Does him leaving this meeting go into that vote when you have to consider
We're
it?
gonna take everything into consideration.
Everything will be taken into consideration.
So a little bit more upfront with you. How do you feel about Cold Iron walking out of this meeting tonight? Do you find it disrespectful to you, or are you indifferent about it?
I feel like everybody has their own road to walk, and his choice is his, and mine's mine.
All right. Thank you
Smart
very much.
answer. That's what I say.
I've learned a little from you.
Yeah. Goat.
Recently, this has been like really weighing on my heart about the situation with the 10-year-old.
Get the microphone used to
You got your mouth right here.
I know, I obviously have.
And I know that it's a long time, so I can say that.
I have never
Thank
had
you.
to actually talk to my children about grooming. That never came to light for me. And this situation, with this person, I really didn't want to believe. I really didn't. Like, it has hurt my heart. And it is, even my girls, it's supposed to be somebody we trust. So now we have talked, and people are creepy. So when they're creepy, you stay away. So that is how I have discussed it with my kids. Now, I do have a child who actually loves wrestling, and it has helped her, and her grades have got better. I'm not going to take that away from her. There are people here who would say, no, don't let your kid do it. It has helped her. Now, this person, they're not allowed to be alone. My kids know they're to be in groups. Even I have told the school, and even to have, because I have kids who have IEP 504, they are not to be alone ever. I don't care if you're getting extra help. In a room, in a hallway, you are to be with someone else. They have implemented that, which I did speak when I told the school. I said, I don't believe there's one parent in the school that would want their kid alone. So I'm going to request, if no one else has, that everything is done in groups.
Yep.
When you get extra help on reading, you're going to be in a group. Because you need to have other people that you do trust, and I would trust this person. I read the text messages myself, and I was very disturbed. I was very upset. I would not want my friend, I would not want anyone to talk to my child like the text I read. So I feel like we do need education. Like, we discuss everything in our house. There's nothing off limits in our house. But I feel like a lot of households don't. And I feel like a lot of people don't know about human trafficking and how many ways you can be human trafficked and grooming. So I feel like that needs to be discussed. I feel like we went away from that. Like our sex ed and all that, like, it's just the concept on the Chromebook. But we need to go back to what worked. I know that like in 6th grade, when you have the talk of the girls going on, you know what I'm saying? Well, I didn't realize that classes like really aren't doing that now, because they sent home letters to say if it was okay or not. Well, some parents sent in that they didn't want their kid to do that. But there's a lot of households who need that. Like maybe they're being raised by their dad. You know what I'm saying? Like he doesn't know how we want to get, how we can help a child. But that is what we need. So I don't know if you all do need. And the suicide, just like those girls fell in love with that teacher. We're lucky they're still here.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? That is the bigger picture. And everybody thinks it's funny, and everything that's happening, we've all heard jokes for years and years, you know, and I do have 2 boys. But it's really, it comes to a point when it's not funny, that everyone knows things that nobody's talking about it. It's just really not funny. So I think we just, from this point on,
I know everyone is extremely tired, so I'll try to keep this as brief as I may. First off, I voted for the four of you, and I sincerely appreciate your staying for the duration of this and listening to all of these concerns. That to me exhibits stand-up people.
Yes.
I think that Mrs. Lopez leaving is appalling, it's inexcusable, it's a slap in the face to this community. And one question I want to ask is this, I have a few other things I'd like to say. Could you kind of explain briefly the rotation in terms of the board elections? Because we need to find somebody who's sitting here to run against her and replace her. And I tell you, the reason I have so much angst against her is because Shanna Arthur, who shared her daughter's story so eloquently and passionately, she's one of my former students. I teach at Marshall University, I've taught at OU Southern, I've taught at Shawnee State University for years. I've been in higher ed for 29 years now. I made a phone call to Mrs. Loperfido back in 2018 about a situation concerning my son, because Larry Coldiron, the superintendent, doesn't know how to communicate effectively with anybody, nor it's either that or he doesn't care. One or the other. It can't be anything in between. Maybe it's a combination of both. I don't know. So I'm waiting on that phone call from Sandy. 5 years now, more than 5 years, I've not received it. She promised me she would call back. I emailed her, she never responded to the email. And I'm just one example. I imagine there are other people who have experienced very similar instances. And to me, to leave with something this crucial and this important to this community, I thought I was done with this place when my daughter graduated in May. I mean, I really was glad I was washing my hands of this place. And I hate to say that, because my time in this community, in terms of my family, dates back to the railroad boom, my great-great-grandparents living on Vine Street. I knew my great-great-grandmother, which doesn't happen all that often. 5 generations of us. My great-grandmother was too old to have started at racial schools because didn't start until 26, so she went to the Russell school system. My grandmother and all of her siblings attended racial schools. My great-grandparents raised 8 children out of a little teeny tiny house that still stands on Pond Road. And then my mother in 1969, me in 1989, my 3 children in 2018, 2020, and 2023. We moved back here because I did a lot of research, lived in Ohio for 11 years after I left this area. And everybody kept saying when we moved back here in 2009, that's where you want to send your kids. So we bought a home on Old Farm. Jerry's my baby. And I've always felt like it was a safe community, a clean community. We're taxed out the roof. I mean, I have a $4,000 tax bill, $2,000 of it comes to this school district. We deserve better than what that superintendent has done the entire time he's been in that position. And I wrote a piece back in 2020, and Shanna Arthur brought it to my attention earlier when we were standing outside. She said, "Do you realize that applies to now?" It applies to now. It applied in 2018, and I won't go into the details of all of that. I just had I'm a faculty member at Marshall. I've been there 15 years. I wrote a textbook about public relations case studies. There are 2 racial cases in that book, and the title of the book is Successes and Failures. Guess which 2 those are? Those are failures, both of them. And it's because it's made, I know there are much deeper rooted problems. My heart goes out, my wife's heart goes out to the families that have been impacted by these horrendous things that have allegedly taken place, confirmed in some cases. And you're in our prayers. I want you to know that. But the title of this was, "It's a Sad Day to Be Around." And again, this stems from our experiences. First, my wife's and my hearts go out, our prayers to all those impacted who stepped forward to share their stories, and the many other families whose situations are unreported. Reading story after story on this Facebook page makes me realize that what happened to my oldest son and our family in 2018 is just just one of many situations in a long, drawn-out pattern of inaction and inappropriate behavior on the part of the Race and Worthington Independent Schools Administration. I, like many of you, am a Race and Worthington High School alumnus, a parent of 3 children, we're fourth-generation students, alumni, the taxpayer, etc. The synopsis of this particular situation, well, let's put it this way. I learned every policy I never wanted to know about this school system after what occurred with my son and his situation. And it was abhorrent behavior. It pales in comparison to what I'm hearing here tonight, which is why I was very hesitant to speak this evening. But I have a very thick file full of documentation about what had occurred. Not Mr. Collins, but the previous principal, in an hour-long meeting I had with him, which my time would have been better spent talking to a cinder block in the wall or a tile on the floor. So when I spoke to the previous principal, he basically laughed and said he did the same thing. And I have an audio recording of him saying that. And that's appalling, it's abhorrent, it's inexcusable. He basically laughed at what had occurred. The next stop was to contact a former athletics director. And I said, I'd like a copy of your, so I teach public relations, I teach communication, I teach marketing, I teach advertising. And one rule of thumb in public relations is to scan the environment and proactively look for loose threads. Loose threads are issues, are isolated problems that can become issues if more than one people are experiencing those. And if they're left unattended, they turn into crises. And if you want some free consulting, I'll give it to you tonight. You're in a state of crisis here.
Yep.
This is not a loose thread. It's not a problem. It's not an issue anymore. It's a crisis. And crises damage brands of organizations. And I'm not privy to, I guess I could dig into it if I had the time to do so, but I'm busy like everybody else. But the days of the railroad, helping in terms of tax base and Armco and all these industries that used to, that's why this school system exists to begin with. Those days are over. So if your brand is damaged, then I would be really concerned down the road if it continues, whether you can keep the doors open or not. So I conducted a lot of research. I looked at, I wanted to, and I even wrote a letter to the superintendent, a very extensive letter. One of my advisors at the University of Dayton looked at it. He's an education law professor. He's world renowned. And my first draft, he said, Terry, that's a great letter. He said, but suck your emotion completely out of it. It's hard to not be emotional when it comes to your children. Right. And so I said, oh, thank you, I appreciate that. Keep it fact-based, keep it policy-based. And that letter went point by point by point. The ethical tenets the teacher and coach have broken. All of the student expectations. If you're going to expect your students to abide by a certain set of rules, the faculty, the administration should abide by the same set of rules. We should be in the business of setting examples for young people. And I'm afraid some poor examples have been set for quite some time now. So when I contacted that former athletics director, I said, I want a copy of your policy manual for coaches. Well, we haven't updated that in 10 years. So one of the things, another piece of advice is training every year. You train people, you proactively try to not let these things happen to begin with. You have to come up with sound policies, but policies are no good unless you have somebody who is effective at enforcing those policies, who is a person of integrity, who will do the right thing. And you all are doing the right thing by being here tonight. And I want to applaud you for doing that. I'm really thankful to see the four people here who have decided to stay. And I do hope somebody will step up and run against Samuel Profita. I don't have time, and my wife would divorce me, so don't ask me again.
I wanted to.
So I finally, after all this nothingness, received a very inadequate, poorly written letter that had typographical errors in it. It's representing an educational institution, and it didn't really assure me anything was being done. Just a form letter. So, and I had made it clear I wanted it to stay in district. I didn't want to take this to the state, but I did take it to the state. And one state representative told me this is a ballot box issue. You need to clean house on your Board of Education. This is back in 2018. And another, I think it's the ESPB.
Yep.
Yeah.
That organization opened up an investigation, and the coach was reprimanded. The only way I found out about anything that was going on is because I filed a Freedom of Information Act request with this district, with the superintendent, using the state language that states you have 3 days to turn these records over. It's a $25 a day misdemeanor per day that you do not turn them over. I had the letter in a day and a half. It showed the letter of reprimand, the coach admitting to doing what he had done, which one other faculty member here told me that he overheard the whole thing. It was the most horrendous thing he had ever seen in his entire time in education. I had somebody say, go see an attorney. You know, I'm not a sue-happy person, but good grief, when, like Cindy was talking, when it comes to your family, you'll do anything to protect them. And my son was graduating. I couldn't let this go. And I thought, you know what, I don't want another child to go through that again. So it took a significant amount of my time to do that. It was worth every minute of doing that. But an education attorney told me that you had grounds for a lawsuit. He said, but you're going to spend a lot more money suing than you're going to get out of it. Long story short, I filed a Freedom of Information Act request with the ESPB. They sent me every piece of documentation from the beginning to the end. So I had that. So I developed a case study. I wrote a case study. I took lemons and made lemonade out of a very nasty situation. And I was hopeful by setting some type of record there that no other child, parents were coming out of the woodwork to us. We didn't tell anybody. I didn't take it to social media. I could have easily taken the whole situation to social media and didn't do it because I wanted to try to test the system to see how well the system worked, and the system in terms of the district failed. And so then that's when I took it external and got the information back. The reason why social media, Discord, chatter, interpersonally in small groups out in the community is taking place is because this district has never had an official means that is adequate in terms of communicating to the constituents that are the most important in this room and at our homes. So the children, the parents, the faculty, the staff, alumni, everybody. There should be a proactive communications plan to make sure that relationships are the way they need to be and that everything is honest and open and transparent. If I made a unilateral decision when all this occurred, all 3 of my children would have been out of here like that. And I don't operate like that. I take their input into consideration. I took my wife's input into consideration, and so we stayed it out. One of the things I do want to mention too, I know it's been brought up a couple of times about students being stifled in terms of being able to talk about this in school and on social media. While we may not like that, we need to get to the root of the problem and fix the problem so they're not talking about it. Yep. You get to the heart of the problem and you fix it. You don't stifle anybody. The Supreme Court repeatedly continues to trend in favor of students, parents, and teachers when it comes to freedom of speech and freedom of expression. I have done a lot of research, scholarly, academic, peer-reviewed research on all the PR stuff, PR in the superintendency. I've written on that. I've written on these issues with regard to freedom of speech and freedom of expression. One of the premier court cases, Tinker, states that students nor faculty shed their constitutional rights at the schoolhouse gate. Yep. That's a paraphrase, but it's from that court case. Those court cases have trended more times than not in favor of students and faculty versus administration. I'm a former higher ed administrator. I've been a faculty member too. I've been a union representative and a faculty at Shawnee State University. I've been on both sides of the fence in kind of this back and forth with that. So I have a lot of respect for administration when it's done effectively, and when it's transparent, and when it's honest, and when it's done with integrity. When I shared our story, and I know three of you were probably on the watch of some, at least two of you maybe, on the watch of some of these former administrators in racial Worthington schools. When I shared what happened to my son with one of them, who is a stand-up man of integrity, he was the principal for most of the people I know in here. And he shared with me, he said, if that had happened on Fred Madden's watch, who was the superintendent, a man of integrity, if that had happened on his watch, heads would have rolled, starting with the coach. May not have been able to remove him as a teacher, but he sure as heck wouldn't be coaching again. And then the principal's head would have rolled. And so we need to bring back that type of integrity. Do the right thing, be transparent, hold people accountable, hold their feet to the fire. I'm going to plead to everybody in here and share with everybody else. You need to contact our legislators, and we need to get this Kentucky Education Reform Act changed a bit. I wrote a piece in one of my master's programs at Ohio University about that very topic, because when that happened in 1990, one of the main purposes of doing that was to swing the influence of the board in terms of getting their family members teaching jobs, etc., to the superintendent. It's gone way too far in one direction. You hold the superintendent accountable. In theory, that's how that's supposed to happen. And I think by here, I wanted to wait till everybody else with their passionate stories, their terrible stories, had the opportunity to speak. I think what I'm hearing from everybody here is we're going to expect you as our representatives, our elected officials, to hold the superintendent accountable, and probably needs to be a clean slate. I think the brand is damaged. Thank you for your time.
Anybody else? Thank you, everybody, for coming. Reach out. All of us have our contact information online. Emails, text messages, phone calls. We're all busy, so we won't get back to you immediately. I'm horrible at emails.
I'm the only one who works a full-time job, so I will do my best to keep.
I work. Those two are retired. We got jobs.
Thank you.
Thank you for staying.
Thank you.